This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
I want to go back and focus on this. I don't know how else you can categorize it. Looks like an assassination to me. And that is that this cop, as this 50-year-old man is running away from a police officer, shot in the back 8 times. And it looked like the officer went and grabbed what he said was the taser and seemed to drop it near where the body of this individual was. Democratic Congressman James Clyburn has weighed in, and he blames voter ID laws for the South Carolina police shooting.
The problem we've got is that a climate has been created in the country that's causing these things to occur all over. And Chris, I know I get a lot of criticism from this from some of my friends, but this so-called American legislative, whatever they call that group, Alex, Legislative Exchange Council, they have been drawing up these legislations, pieces of legislation like Stand Your Ground. That legislation gives a license for people to be vigilantes. They're the ones that's drawing up all these so-called voter ID laws. They're the ones that have been drawing up these unfair redistricting plans. These people are a cancer eating at the inners of our society. And it's time for our elected officials to start speaking out about this, because the climate that's being created is not a good climate. And that's why you have these rogue police officers feeling they have license to do what they want to do, and there will be no consequences paid for it. And I think that that's the mindset of this police officer.
All right, joining us now to discuss and debate all of this, the Reverend Oliver White of the Grace Community United Church of Christ, the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's with the group Bond, the Brotherhood Organization for a New Destiny. And, gentlemen, welcome back, both of you, to the program.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you having me on.
Look, I'm very, very upfront. I think too often we look at snippets of videotape, and I think people rush to judgment. But I don't think that's the case here. I look at this video, and I see a man, I don't care what led up to this guy running the way he did. This police officer had no right to shoot this man and kill this man in cold blood in the back. I don't see any police tactics, training used in this case at all. The only question I have is, I think everybody pretty much agrees with it. The only question is why some people like James Clyburn are trying to politicize it when everybody agrees. Reverend Oliver White, what's your take on it?
Well, when I listened to the gentleman that just spoke, I kind of thought, this is not the overall picture. This is a rarity. I don't think that we need to have a revolution against the police department, because I believe that the vast majority of police officers are well trained and wish to serve their community. This is a rogue cop. Sean, you and I haven't agreed on too many things over the years, but this is one thing I do agree with you on, is that this shooting was entirely unnecessary. Here you have a man, 50 years old, apparently not in the best of health, running away from a police officer.
And by the way, not even running particularly quick either. I mean, let's be honest.
No.
He
could have caught him
easy. I mean, it wouldn't have been hard. Didn't have a weapon in his hand. He's running away. He's not a threat to the officer. Not a threat to anyone in the community. I mean, I'm looking at this and I want to cry, because
and the man looked like a football player, a well trained.
Yeah, the cop. You mean?
Player.
Yeah, the cop looks strong, able to handle himself. What's your take on it, Jesse Lee?
At first glance at the video, it was shocking. I mean, you're seeing a man appears to be getting shot in the back.
What do you mean appears to be? He was shot in the back.
Well, shot in the back. And when you first see the video, it seemed like a bad thing. But what I think is a mistake to overreact. Many times, some Americans have overreacted to videotapes. We saw it with the George Zimmerman situation, Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, but that's very different. I mean,
no, it's not different.
No, I'll tell you why it's different.
Why is that?
It's different because in that case, we only had, statements from very limited sources, and most of them biased. It wasn't until the trial, when the evidence was brought up that we had an eyewitness in the case. The eyewitness said that Trayvon Martin was on top of George Zimmerman doing a ground and pound move against him,
Right.
and that the tape of the screaming was George Zimmerman screaming for his life. So we didn't know in that particular case.
But
and
my
we have a
point is
video.
that-
We have a video here that is incontrovertible, Jesse.
My point is that there
mention a
was an
witness.
overreaction to that, and at the end of that trial, we found out there was much more to it than what we had been told. Now, I don't know. I think to be fair to this officer in South Carolina, as well as the victim, is that we should have the attitude to wait and see and get all of the information before we make a complete judgment.
But here's
Because when we came into the video, it was already happening. We don't know what started the whole issue. And by the way, the black guy that was
all right, but I'm arguing that that's irrelevant. What started the issue is
irrelevant.
wait a minute. It's irrelevant because at the moment that the 8 shots were fired, he's 15 feet away from the cop. He's not a danger to the cop. He's not a danger to anybody in the community.
Well, I'm not justifying the shooting at this point at all. I'm saying we owe it to the cop to at least give him a fair trial.
Everybody's not guilty is innocent
Right.
until proven guilty. But Jesse, you can't look at this tape and you can't give me any scenario that I can ever think of that would say
Well,
that justifies shooting somebody 8 times in the back as he's running away from you
And
and not
again,
a threat
we
to
need-
anybody.
Right. And again, we need to find out why did that happen that way. We
It
also
doesn't.
need
Wait,
to
wait,
realize.
it doesn't matter.
And then what?
Sean,
I mean,
we
when
need to
find out,
realize
we
that.
already know
Hold on a
what
minute.
happened.
Hold on, Mr. White.
We saw it.
Hey, we need to also realize that the man that is dead and was running is a criminal. And
Oh,
in
come
America,
on, brother.
if you want
Brother
to
Peterson,
if you want
that
to
has nothing to
survive,
do with it.
hold on a minute. If you want to survive, when you're stopped by an officer, you don't fight them, you don't run away, you don't curse them out, you follow instructions. And I believe that had the man that's dead follow instructions of the officer, whether he would had a
All right,
warrant out on him or not.
But Jesse, that
he
is
might be
but
alive
Jesse,
today.
that is irrelevant. There are always going to be people that resist arrest. It's always in everybody's best interest to just comply. I'm not going to disagree. But here's the reality. The reality is that man was not a threat to that officer. That officer lifted his gun, he aimed, and he fired again and again and again. Now, I've carried a firearm my whole life.
And I'm not, again, let me make it clear. I'm not saying that the officer was right or wrong, and I'm not making a decision about the victim. But what I am saying is that we came in the middle of the video, looked like there had been a fight prior to the victim taking off running.
But that does,
and we owe it to
irrelevant.
this officer and his family.
But all right, I'm all for offering innocence till proven guilty. I get your point, but I'm going to be honest, Jesse. It's irrelevant to me what happened before. Let's say that the guy punched the cop in the face. He was not a threat to the cop at that moment by any stretch.
But
none.
And you're right. And if that's true, then the officer deserved the punishment that is put out for him as a result of what he's doing. But for the officer's sake and his family, if it was me, I have many friends who are police officers of all races, and they are really good men and women, and they are not out there trying to kill folks. But they are under pressure today like never before.
Yeah, but my cop friends are angry at this video. You know why? Because it makes them look bad.
So what now?
I have friends a ton of friends that are cops.
Right.
They're angry at that video. You want to know why? They're angry because it makes them look bad. And they're not like that. Look, Jesse, I've carried a firearm my entire adult life.
Right.
I've been trained in the use of a pistol since I'm 11 to 12 years old. And I am telling you, if you are trained in the use of a firearm, you don't shoot somebody in the back that's 15 feet away from you ever.
And that's true, but Sean, listen, by most Americans making a judgment of this officer, you're setting him up to not even have a chance in court.
I'm giving my opinion. But wait a minute, I'm giving my opinion. I cannot contemplate in my mind any defense that's going to result in any other trial, at any other result, because I know the proper use. I've been properly trained in the safety use of firearms and the justifiable use of force. There's no danger to this cop here. All right. Anyway, Oliver, you talk.
Well, I don't understand where Brother Peterson is coming from. I mean, he's suggesting that we hold off any kinds of demonstrations or hold off any kind of public opinion or whatever until adjudication rather, until, the lawyers have done their due diligence and the man stands before the court. And if the court proves that he is guilty of this offense, then we have the right to protest and raise a voice. But no, a situation like this, in the light of what has recently taken place, is like adding a match to kerosene. Obviously, the police officer, who was much healthier, who was trained, supposedly trained to deal with the public, should not have drawn his gun. There was no reason. There was no one standing nearby.
You don't know that.
That could have been. The video shows that the
Reverend White, when you're sitting back in your
well.
living room watching a football game and you're looking at the mistakes that players are making, it's easy to say, oh, why did he do that? And why did he do that? This. But when you're out on the field, it's a different story. This, and I'm not, again, I don't know if it's right or wrong.
I can't imagine
but
anything
this officer
else we
was
could see
out on
that
the
would
field.
prove that this is justification.
And
What
I think
else
that
could
he
we see?
deserved a proper hearing in the courts. And once that is done, whatever the jury decide, then we need to accept that. But to judge this man completely based on coming into a video doesn't sound right. I wouldn't want that to happen to me if the other person wasn't involved in the situation. My question to Reverend White, why is it that we don't see video cameras in the urban areas around the country? Just to think about the black-on-black crime that will end against innocent black folks. If these people who are shouting Black Lives Matter, if they took cameras and went into the urban areas and videotaped the thugs who are robbing, raping, and killing innocent black people, would that make a difference for the good?
You know what? I think it would probably be more apropos if we took video cameras and put them in the offices of corporate America,
I'm talking
where
about
the
in
real
the urban
problems
areas
are.
where crime is really out of control. How about that?
No, I think we need to follow.
Well, see, Sean,
Donald Trump with the
this is where I
cameras.
have an issue too. Whenever a white officer is involved with a crime with a black person, it all hell to pay. I'm dealing with a family right now that lives in the inner cities. I don't want to say where. They have a thug in their neighborhood who is openly breaking into homes, and the folks know who it is, but they are afraid to report it to the police officer for fear of retaliation, that these gang members would kill their children, vandalize their automobiles, and so they're allowing this guy to run around in the area there and rob people and do nothing about it. I invite these people who are shouting Black Lives Matter to go into the urban area with those cameras to help cut back on the crime and protect the innocents.
Well, that may be one way of helping the situation, which I have nothing against trying to make life more livable in the urban areas. And
so let's encourage that then, the way they're doing with these cops.
But there are many more solutions than just following black folk around or arresting thugs and whatnot. I mean, we need to look at the economics of the situation. We need to look at schools that are not producing. We need to look
I have
at
to honestly
jobs
tell
that are
you,
not paying.
Reverend White, until we rebuild families in the black community, fathers and mothers get married and guide their children in the right way to go, teach them to work and be responsible, get away from the race hustlers who are creating these type of environments, this type of environment between blacks and whites. I heard Sean play a little intro there of a politician saying that, they are blaming it on someone else. But it's these race hustlers, Sean and Reverend White, who are creating these environments.
I think this is a discussion. I think this is a discussion for another day. But I'm talking about this tape. This tape breaks my heart. This tape makes me sad. This tape makes me, it makes me sad that this could happen in America. This shouldn't happen, Jesse. This is just wrong. This is just wrong.
Unless black people overcome, not all of course, but unless these thugs overcome their anger.
It's not about that issue here.
Follow instructions of the officer, Sean, it's not going to get better.
It doesn't excuse what this cop did. It is no excuse for firing. I am trained. I'm trained in the use of firearms. You don't ever do this. ever. All right, but I got to run. We'll have you both back, and we'll talk more about it maybe later in the week.